Awesome. Welcome everyone. Welcome to episode 32 of my journey as a startup founder. I'm building my own baby Google or baby Perplexity as a one-person company. I quit Google a couple of years back to start this startup, and it's been one of the best decisions of my life. And it truly is. Um, it's amazing what we can accomplish. As one person companies these days with AI, coding, LLMs, etc. I do have to do a little bit of code and architect and all of that. So it's not just vibe coding. You can't build a search platform vibe coding. And also, you have to spend a lot of time design, and you have to spend a lot of time figuring out what is the value proposition and how are you going to build it, how are you going to design it. And the problem with LLM still remain, they still have a very narrow context window. When you build a very large app, some parts of the app become over-engineered, some parts of the app or backend become under-engineered, and some parts of the app gets rebuilt again because these LLMs still have a hard time, even though they search in the code base, um, to yeah, sometimes see the big picture and sometimes zoom in. They're getting better day by day, but it, it today as it stands, you pretty much have to be an engineer to use these solutions to build large scale platforms for toy apps, simple apps, just kind of mobile apps. Maybe they are good enough. But anyway, today I'm talking about knowledge graphs, and even though I'm building an AI search platform, why am I talking about knowledge graphs? So that's the topic for today. But let me take a step back first and what I mean by AI search. It's really if you've used Google and you see the AI mode that shows up, that's basically what I is AI search. You're using AI to generate search response, which is different than showing a bunch of links. If you use Perplexity, it's basically an AI search product. And you must be thinking, what's the big deal? You just get search and feed it in. And it actually is much more complicated. If it was that easy, we would have had many Perplexity. And also um, a lot of competition. There are a lot of nuances, and one of that sort of detail why AI search is complicated is the subject of today's topic, knowledge graphs. Now, I don't think Perplexity may have built it, but Google certainly have built a knowledge graph for many years now. They've actually acquired startups and companies to beef up the knowledge graph at a time when they were very hot. Now, knowledge graphs, not so much. They've more become a burden within Google because I was part of the knowledge graph org in a leadership role capacity. I was working in Mountain View, building 2000 Charleston, and uh, the the mindset, the thinking at Google very much was, this is good it's a good, it's a good differentiator, but it's not cutting edge anymore. It's a pain to kind of manage, and uh, what is the use of it once AI becomes very smart and AI will answer everything? Why do you need knowledge graph? And that's kind of where I want to talk a little bit more about the value of knowledge graphs. And before that, actually, let me explain what a knowledge graph is. All a knowledge graph is a graph data structure that has information, data stored about the world as we know it. And the value especially comes if you can keep that knowledge graph up to date. If you store information about, say, relations, like some person got married or works at a certain company, that's a relation, you store it in the graph. Um, if they no longer work at the company, your graph is stale. But for a second, imagine you are able to keep your graph up to date, refreshed. Then it's a tremendous asset because then in any kind of use case, say in my use case, AI search, I can bring all that data to what's called ground my AI search response. So if someone's asking about Tom Cruise, I'll be able to pull Tom Cruise's information, height, or where he was born, maybe some of his latest, newest movies, maybe his marital status, maybe anything else. I'll be able to pull all of that from my own internal knowledge graph, so that when the response that AI generates can account all of that. Otherwise, if the AI just responds, the model is built oftentimes several months or years back, and so it doesn't know all the things that Tom Cruise may have gone through. Another use case is Queen Elizabeth. There was, she died a few years back, and there was a time on Google search when you search on Google and Queen Elizabeth, the card for Queen Elizabeth still showed up as she was alive. Again, because there's a latency to get the data from Wikipedia and all these other sources, reliable sources, in the Google's knowledge graph. But if you can, for a second, imagine you can solve all that, then if you ask an AI question about Queen Elizabeth, AI will also know, oh, by the way, she recently passed away. This is how she passed away. Or this is where she passed away, etc. And so it can respond in that context. So the answer is much more legit, looks legitimate and more useful. That's the value of knowledge graph. And you can throw in anything and everything you want. The biggest sort of value is, in my viewpoint, is sort of you need to have a node for every Wikipedia page. That's a very basic way to get started. There's tons of Wikipedia data, Wikidata, and Wikipedia data. Wikidata is just a structured way to consume Wikipedia data. But anyways, that's what essential knowledge graph is. It's a graph data structure that you save it in your database, you persist it, and you can query it and use it in anywhere else. Or you can make it as a product. You could actually technically build knowledge graph as a startup, and offer a SaaS service where other companies may want it. Um, and the effort that I would put in is not just building the graph, but keeping it refreshed, keeping it up to date. That's the hard part. That's what Google was struggling with. And they had a huge team just to kind of maintain the entire pipeline. And the other problem is a lot of bad data, bad quality data, incorrect data, biased data makes it through Wikipedia and all these even trusted online sources. And if you pick it up and show it in your product, you're the one. Folks won't know it was Wikipedia's problem. They'll know that you showed incorrect information. So there is that another layer of how do you vet and validate, and that's a very hard problem. That's a topic for another session. I'm a startup, so I don't have to worry so much. Like I'm not spending too much time thinking about. I get the latest sort of info from Wikipedia, and I use some other sources like Grokpedia and things like that. So there's enough cross-referencing that happens that it sort of problem solves by itself. But if you are using in a mission critical environment and your bar for trust and quality is very high, then you have to put some kind of thought into it. And there are a lot of heuristics and rules and techniques that Google had developed over the years to kind of get some idea. Like if a page was edited a lot very quickly, you may want to, that's kind of a red flag. You may want to wait until the page settles and the editors finally, clean it up or settle on the right sort of text or the verbiage. So that's an example, and there are lots of other techniques. But that's knowledge graph. It's a valuable, very valuable asset, especially for a search company. But again, it comes to the downside. Like I said, you have to build it, but you have to maintain it. So here I'm talking about how I am building, and it's kind of crazy to me. I never thought when I started build this AI search effort, I never thought I'd build a knowledge graph, even though I've worked with knowledge graphs and search like for several years in my career. But the moment I sort of started thinking about it, it actually was very gradual. One of the things that I first did once I had a decent search response working was extract entities from the search response to kind of create cards, kind of like knowledge panel cards. I really like them. So if you're asking about Elon Musk or Bezos or Trump, it would be nice to show a card of like some basic info about Elon Musk or President Trump. And so you have to extract entity for that. And so I started there, and then I'm like, oh, I want to do more. And then I was thinking, well, what happens when users interact with this card? Um, what happens when they click on it? And should I just send them to Wikipedia? And then I was thinking, it would be interesting if I can host it myself. Reason being that I can add a lot of value by pulling data from multiple sources, including Twitter and YouTube, and create a render sort of a Wikipedia-like page on my search product. Why? Because of SEO, and maybe I'll get some customer acquisition out of it or some traffic. And that may be a good thing if I build it right with the right best practice. And also, I'm not duplicating. Keep in mind, I'm not just taking Wikipedia and just copying it. I'm taking a lot of sources, Wikipedia and social media and YouTube and other trusted sources. Social media is not trusted, but Wikipedia, Grokpedia, I'm treating them as trusted. And then I'm infusing on top of that some real-time info, news also. So what really happened, and then constructing it, and then it's being refreshed. I haven't decided how often. Right now, it's lazily refreshed, but there are lots of things I have to figure out. But it gets refreshed, and so it gets constructed by LLM. It's like a search response in itself. If you ask for Donald Trump and you get a response, that's what that page becomes. So I might as well make a SEO page out of it, and I've added FAQs on it as well. So it became pretty cool. It became a baby sort of project, turned from a baby project into a much larger project. Like I said, it's like a startup of its own, and I'm a one-person company, and I have no funding by the way. But I felt that it was necessary because now I can finally take what I'm building in the knowledge graph, and when I get queries for, say, Donald Trump or Elon Musk, I can fetch that data and ground my response with it, which otherwise you still could, but it's not very attractive. Like, it's not you don't have a very clean mechanism to ground AI responses. You can fetch Wikipedia, or you can fetch trust from trusted sources. Like, one way to do it, probably what Perplexity does, is it always has its own sort of Wikipedia clone or copy, and it can always semantic search on it in its own database or Wikidata, and then use that for grounding. And that they can do it. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of infrastructure. They're already worth billions of dollars. I have $0 funding, and I'm paying by my credit card the bills I'm getting today, and it's like I'm bleeding by the nose. And the last thing I can do is get that entire dump of Wikipedia. um, and also I have zero users. It's like insane. So for someone like me, this one made the most sense. But now I can ground it, and so now my responses can be much more interesting. And the one sort of goal I've always had from day one is the response my product generates should exceed Perplexity's basic response, meaning the free model, not the advanced models that you can select, like Gemini, etc. That's sort of the bar from day one. And of course, Google's AI mode, it has to beat. That would be a success. That's a success criteria. And the big success metric I have is sending sort of updates to users. And when I design it, I haven't yet, but I want sort of a like, I like this update or not like this update, or very much like this update um, action. And if they do that, that's sort of my success metric, where all this work we're doing with all the data collection, all the search, and going through so many AI stages and models and constructing something that someone finds useful in their professional life, in their personal life. Maybe I'm thinking even like an action like this help me become a better person, or this I would help me make more money, or this helped me become im- I don't know, become a better professional, or this informed me so that I could make better decisions. Something like that is what the action I want. But at the end of the day, it's a counter, it's a metric, and that is my ultimate success metric. How many users I have, how many updates I'm sending, and what's the engagement, and how many people actually like it. And if that number is, out of 100 updates I send, say I have 100 users, I have 100 users updates I send, if I get 10 likes out of it, that is a success. At ground zero where I'm starting, that's 10%. That's I mean that's a lot. You're already helping 10 people, and the mission of my company is to increase human happiness. A lot of people are already happy. Some people are not very happy, but I want to help increase happiness. And productivity is a great way. And also helping them stay away from social media apps when possible. They're not all bad all the time, but if you can get your fix without social media apps, that's a win. Just saves you time to do things that you like, more happiness. So that's knowledge graph. That's my product. And what now I finally can talk about what I'm showing you on the screen. So this is the architecture that I currently have, fairly straightforward. It is technical if you've never worked with search and knowledge graph. It kind of, or graphs in general, may sound scary, complicated, but very, very straightforward, believe me. So let's start at the top. I want to walk you through. And by the way, no one watches these videos, so I joke that I'm recording for my future self, and that's perfectly fine. It's like a video diary. And if someone finds it useful, maybe at some point they'll run into the product I built and they're like, who's this guy? And they're like, how did he build what he did alone as a one person company? Maybe these videos may help them. I don't know. Okay. So let's start at the top, right? This is, by the way, 10,000 feet view, maybe 5,000 feet view. Yeah. I think 10,000 probably makes more sense. But the idea is that let's focus on this KG query service. KG starts for knowledge graph. And the idea is that you got entities, you got relations. And here it says queries because this is actually the architecture for the service, but it represents the knowledge graph architecture in a nutshell. So that's why I picked this diagram. But this is sort of designed such that consumers, so it's a service. So consumers, and I say consumer, it's like other code in my system that I'm building can use this. And maybe in the future, this can be a SaaS API that I can expose to developers and they can take advantage of it. And I monetize because of this API. So who knows? So at least I've built it so that I can monetize in the future. Not on day one, not on day two, not on day 10, but maybe in the future. But so you got all these entities, relation, and then you can walk the graph or query the graph or what's called traversal if you want to do something complicated. For now, I have entities. Each entity maps to a Wikipedia page. And then I derive relations from Wikipedia. And then I save it in the graph. And then I can query it right now. It's all stored in Cloud SQL, which is Google Cloud SQL database. So I'm basically storing a graph in a SQL database, which is very much doable. And you can query it. Um, and you can use things like Sparkle and other ways to query or just plain old SQL. It gets cumbersome if you want to do very complicated queries. Maybe in the future, I may look into like a native graph DB. There are a bunch of them, Neo4j, Falcor. I don't have the resources, not the interest. I want to build the bare minimum, right, as a one-person company. And this itself was stretching it to build a whole. I didn't ever thought I'll build a knowledge graph. In fact, that's why I recommend if you want to build something like what I'm doing, just jump in. Don't plan too much other than having a vision and time and money set aside. Because once you jump in, so many of your things get crystallized and you start making more informed decisions and you end up with something which you never thought what you started with. And then once you get feedback, that changes things more, even more. So when I started with, I never thought. I mean, it's a daunting thing. If I look back and say, what I'm going to build a search backend, entire query processing, AI query pipeline with multiple LLM calls by myself alone, and I don't have Google Feed anymore. They deprecated, so I have to find other things, and then plus I have to fetch all these pages and make all these API calls and make it intelligent. And also, one of my core tenet is multilingual and global from day one, meaning it's a global app from day one. That's a hard P0 requirement. Most investors would laugh at me, but that was something I'd set up for myself from day one. You could be in Brazil and it should work. I mean, maybe the only country it may not work well is China because it's kind of walled garden. But that's sort of was what I set out to. So building a global app and then building a knowledge graph. And what about knowledge graph? with all the locale in mind. It gets insane. It's pretty it adds up very quickly. The complexity piles up very quickly. But anyway, so you are a consumer, like in my case, the search pipeline or entity pages, the SEO page that I'm hosting. Briefs are just things that I can construct for users. Comparisons maybe for the future, API for the future. So let's say search pipelines, so someone's searching about Trump news, latest Trump news. Uh, will the search pipeline, there'll be a step in the pipeline to call the knowledge graph once entities recognize it is about Trump as an entity. And then from the query service, knowledge graph query service, you can pull in information about Trump and some of Trump's relations, including like it's not just spousal relation or spousal relation. It could be like Trump and JD Vance, or president, vice president, right? Things like that, members of his cabinet, things like that. So yeah, and then you can pull that information, and that's used to ground. So if something changed about Trump that's fairly recent, hopefully the knowledge graph has that picked up, and that can be used when the AI constructs the response about Trump and constructs a summary of the news. It can use this information and make basically the response much richer, much livelier, and takes into account some recent changes, right? Maybe he's traveling to China, like he was planning to travel to China. Maybe that's kind of incorporated, and so the AI, the tone, and the way it responds, such that right now Donald Trump is in China, but he's talking about this in news, right? That's amazing. Yeah, it's beautiful to get that kind of response. That's very, very personalized. And on top of that, if you can personalize on users' private memories, and tone, like they prefer a professional tone or a, a witty tone or like a funny tone. You put it all together, it becomes very powerful, very powerful. And then the search itself is an API that I'd love to service that to developers. And so I have search API, I have all these other sub APIs that I've for sub components that I've built, maybe that I can service them and the knowledge graph API. And maybe that could be my main monetization mechanism. So I become like a SaaS company, which is funny. I never thought that's another thing. I set out to build a consumer product, but if all your monetization is via API, you're a SaaS company. SaaS, SaaS. So yeah, and then there's a caching layer because when it hits the database, obviously it's expensive, and you also want a quick response because the query pipeline is dependent on it. If there are more than one entities in the query, they all are fetched, and so if it's cached, it comes back quickly. So that's it. You've got these are all table. You can think of them as like entity as a table, relation as a table. Of course, graph traversal is just algorithms and queries that you can make. Aggregate queries is mostly for statistics and reports. So yeah. Oh, sorry. Let me change it. Yeah. So that's kind of how. Again, this is the service view, not the knowledge graph view. But I thought this was the best diagram I had that I can show how I'm building a knowledge graph as part of my search. It's funny, I have multiple layers of cache, which is true. Memory, Redis. I'm using Upstash Redis because it's much cheaper. Google Cloud Redis is so expensive. Um, yeah, and here's the table, entities table, aliases, race relations, etc. So pretty good. It's fun. It's just added to added to the work, entities to members. It just added to the work. Like I set out to build a search experience and now I have to worry about this. But the big win I'm hoping I have is this will power like a Wikipedia style page, say about Donald Trump, on my product that's grounded, refreshed periodically, grounded in trusted sources or fairly trusted sources. Um, so it'll add value to the product and hopefully use for the users. And one extra thing I'm thinking about, which I'm currently prototyping, is then on that entity page, you can then have a conversation just about the entity. So everyone's doing this. Google Maps made an update where now you can ask with AI, talk about a place or a city. YouTube did that where you watch a YouTube video, watching a YouTube video in the app, You can just chat about this video. Oh, what is this guy talking about? Or what are the main points about it that that are mentioned in this video? Or help me understand this. And there's an AI sort of component to it, and you can just kind of the AI will respond, and you can see it in the YouTube app. So everyone's doing it because it's hopefully saves people time and makes it easier for them, especially when you have long pages. So I'm thinking like I can have in the future maybe a mini AI to talk about this entity, and I can use all the infrastructure, all the backend components I have. So you can talk about Trump and when did Trump, or how many wars did Trump start, or which was the last war Trump started before the current one, or where is he traveling, or uh, has he been married more than once, whatever, right? So these are things you can ask, and instead of reading a lot, you can just get in line on the Wikipedia style page the answers. There are a lot of browser extensions today that do the same thing, Chrome browser extension, and they work on any page. But this is something that in the future I can build, but not on day one. The last thing I'll say is, even though this sounds like I'm doing a lot, my default mode when I have an idea or when I want to build something is always now. Like the first time this idea came to me, I'm like, no, I'm not building a knowledge graph. That's sort of, if I'm successful, I think the mantra that maybe helps me do that is like be very, very careful and stingy, if you will, on saying yeses. Because when you say yes, it adds effort, commitment, and responsibility for the user. And I'm building a very user-centric product. I want users to trust my product. And so anything yes I do, that's more responsibility, more surface area for that commitment and trust. And so I hesitated a lot before I decided I'll build a knowledge graph. But I felt that it gave me a little bit of an edge, because if I didn't have knowledge graph, I'm just like AI search. I call web search some other pages, put it in the response. At least that's how it appears. Not very useful, but this kind of adds a little more power and kind of gives me opportunities to monetize in the future. Those were reasons why I thought, and I have experience. I've worked in the knowledge graph org at Google, so I've experience with them. And I've worked with knowledge graph before that. I used to work for ask.com or ask Jeeves is another. I mean, that's the company people know about, the name. And so one way or the other, I've worked or been familiar with this subject for a while. Oh, and I built my own knowledge graph when I had my previous startup. Mini knowledge graph. This is more comprehensive. So I've had experience with it, so that's why I jumped on it. But otherwise, anything comes, no, no, no. I want to focus on the product, source product, great user experience. That's it. But yeah, that's it for today's video. This is sort of my first session. I'm talking about knowledge graph. I know I'm dying to kind of demo the user experience. It's coming soon. The deadline I've set myself. That, by the way, that's another tip. Always set a deadline for everything you're doing. The deadline I've set up myself for everything end to end done for a pre alpha means bugs. There are known bugs. Is next month, mid next month, end of next month maybe. So I'm cutting it close. So hopefully I'll be able to demo soon and reveal the brand, which I'm excited. All right, that's it. That's it for today. That's knowledge graph, and yeah, there's so much more to talk about that I'm involved in. I also do, by the way, videos on how I'm using AI coding, because I've been using it for 2 years nonstop, pretty much almost every day, and so I've kind of gotten into the mind, and I'm on the latest and greatest. Opus from Claude is the primary, and then I also use Codex, um, latest and greatest, high thinking, extra high thinking. So all the things I've learned, and I feel I've developed a relationship. I know how they think, so that's cool too. But anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you in the next one. See ya.